Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Reckless Paradise podcast. I'm your host, Dystro, and still without Marissa at this time because she's going through some family stuff right now with some personal health issues and all that stuff. But I am going to be doing another year in review episode for you tonight. But this is going to be a double header. This is going to be a two-in-one sort of scenario. um, this is going to be for the years of 1998 and the 1999 years of wrestling. Now, I think the three main key companies at this time are going to be WWF, that I'm going to be focusing on, WCW, and ECW. Now, if you don't know the time period at this time, this is like during the Attitude Era and all that stuff of WWF and WCW and ECW. Um, a lot of these shows are going to be kind of like near and dear closer to my heart because I was born in 1998. I'm a 1998 baby, which is kind of like cool to like kind of look back on certain things like from the time period. So I'd rather get this done and dusted and all this stuff. But there's going to be a lot of debuts, retirements, and deaths and all that stuff, and maybe some births that happened during both of those years. So I might start with those first. So we're starting with the births, the birthdays, I should say. Um, there's four key people that I wanted to take a part in. Which was one of them was Megan Blaine, who's also in AEW right now. She's killing it on the indie scene right now. Another one was Master Slamovich, which I've seen live in person two times, or actually maybe three times. Um, Anna Jay from AEW, she's like really killing it right now, and Lola Vice, which I mean that's kind of crazy because um, we're seeing all four of those women on weekly TV, maybe on the indie scene right now, which is cool to say that you got to be birthed or to be born on in the late 90s. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Now for the debuts, these are gonna be kind of, shall we say, a lot of very notable names on this debuts list. The first one is going to be AJ Styles, which I mean that's kind of crazy that he debuted in '98. Another main one was Amazing Red, which is like two of the best like high flying cruiserweight people in the late '90s, which is crazy to say that they've been doing this since like '98. Another one is Tony Mamaluk from ECW. He's an ECW guy through and through. Um, I mean, he had like a little stint in WCW, but I mean, not a lot of people, got to go to WCW and all that stuff. Another cool one, I should say, is Mystico, who's the former Sin Cara. Um, which is like crazy to think about that he's been doing this since like late '90s. Uh, Another TNA original, I should say, in this list is Frankie Kazarian, Bobby Roode, Hamada, which is like crazy to think about. Angle debuted during this year. Marufuji and Tigre Uno, Low Key, Congo Kong, like all these like really like household names and names in the industry, like they debuted in like the late '90s, and we haven't even gotten to '99 yet. So this is gonna be crazy to see like what the landscape has changed during that time. So going into the retirements portion of this, Inoki had retired during this year, which is crazy to think about. Like he returned to wrestling in 2000, and then he retired again in '01, late '01. Rick Martel retired in '98. Even Shawn Michaels, he retired on the March 28th episode of Raw, where he lost his smile. He lost his smile, and then he returned to ring in action in '02 and then retired again in 2010, which is crazy to think about. The Patriot, he retired in '98. He was only around for like 10 years, which is crazy. And Paul Roma, he retired in '98. He returned to wrestling in '06, which is like crazy to think about as well. Which is like some of these wrestlers like I might not really know much about, but I know what they are capable of in the wrestling and all that stuff. Now with the deaths portion, there was not a lot of names that I remember, but there was only two that kind of stuck out to me. One was Louis Piccoli. He was 27 when he passed. Which is crazy to like think about, like it doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are. It's like when your time has come, it's like it's up like that, and um, he probably gave a little bit to the business. I don't know really much about Louis Piccoli, um, but I mean, may he rest in peace. Another one was Junkyard Dog. Like he was 45 when he passed. So like I said, doesn't matter if how young you are, how old you are. It's like when your time is up, it's like your time is up. Which is just a shame to see. Somebody so young and then somebody so like in the middle of their prime. Um, it's just see them to like just gone. Um, just always just cherish your loved ones, cherish the people that are around, because you just never know when their time is up. But with that being said, let's get into the main portion of the show. So, like I said at the top of the recording, the main focus is probably going to be on WCW, ECW, and WWF. Now, it's not going to say, like, there's going to be some New Japan stuff in there, but I don't really know 90s New Japan. I only know, like, 2010 and beyond New Japan sometimes. But, like, one of the key, like, pay per views, I guess, from in January of '98 was, like, the Royal Rumble that year. Because that's when, Stone Cold won his first Royal Rumble, which is crazy to think about. Like, this is Austin's prime era, like the Attitude Era. Um, because like '98, it's like it's all about Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, Steve Austin, the beginning of stuff, The Rock, the Triple H, and all that stuff. Mr. McMahon as a on-air personality, being an absolute heel, and he even debuted this year too. And the main event was Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker in a casket match for the World Heavyweight Title. This is also the exact same pay per view match where Shawn Michaels herniated four disc or broke four herniated disc in his back, taking a bump on the casket and all that stuff, which led to almost like his retirement and all that stuff. Like I said, in the retirement section, which is like it's a real shame to see him kind of fall, kind of like not from grace, but kind of fall from like the high heights that he had. And this is like during the time where it's like Shawn Michaels was being an absolute dickhead backstage too. So it's like it's kind of like not a blessing in disguise, I guess, if you want to think about it that way. But it was like one of those like moments in time where it's like he had to like really step back and kind of like take his health in consideration and all stuff. Um, but then like due to the grace of God and all that stuff, like 4 years later he got clean and he found God and all that stuff. So it's like it kind of worked out for him. So another key pay per view around this time in January as well. It was ECW's Hostile City Showdown in Philly, and the main event is a really doozy, folks. Is RVD and Sabu versus the Dudley Boys versus the Gangstanators, which is John Cronus and New Jack versus Sandman and Tommy Dreamer. Wow, what a clusterfuck that would be. It it's crazy enough to have RVD and Sabu, and then you have Bubba, the Dudley Boys, and all that stuff. But then you have the Gangstanators, and you have Sandman and Tommy Dreamer in the mix, and it's like it had to be like one of those like brawls that it was like Texas tornado sort of style, which is crazy to say that even though I am a youngling, I'm about to turn 26 in a few months. I know a lot about ECW, which is crazy. Um, but that match, I gotta go watch that match because that sounds like a lot of fun. So now we move on to February, and there was not a lot happening in the world of in February, and like I said, it was WWF, ECW, and WCW. Um, this main event for WWF's No Way Out pay per view. It's No Way Out in Texas, in your house. All the in your house pay per views. It's always so cool to see. You have Cactus Jack, Train Cell Charlie, who's Terry Funk, Owen Hart, and Stone Cold Steve Austin defeat the New Age Outlaws, Savio Vega, and Triple H in a non-sanctioned 8-man tag. That sounds, like I said, like a recipe for awesomeness sort of thing. I think it was like a really good match too. I haven't watched it yet, but like I said, it's like the landscape around this time. It was like Attitude Era. It was anything goes, no holds barred sort of shit. Um, but then you have like some NWA stuff here and there. AAA was getting recognized around this time too. Um, so now we head into March of '98, and this is where it's Mania season, it's WrestleMania season, it's WrestleMania 19 or WrestleMania 19. Wow, that shows you how far into the future we're going. WrestleMania 14, and it's Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Shawn Michaels for the WWF Championship. Shawn Michaels had to drop the belt to Austin because he had to get surgery and all that stuff. So it's like Shawn Michaels was very very pouty about that. So Shawn Michaels was like it's like he had to put Austin over, and it's like if he didn't, it's like that would be such a detriment to the company because it's like Shawn Michaels just doesn't want to do business. So it's like Austin's time in the sun. It's a very big moment because like Mike Tyson kind of like sucker punched Michaels as well after the match. So that's a really good moment, and is it a really good like pay per view? I guess, but the other match that I would recommend from that pay per view is Kane versus Undertaker, and I think it's like it's a really good shout, just for the two matches alone. So now we get into April, and we have Spring Stampede with WCW with the NWO stuff. Randy Savage defeats Sting in a no DQ match for the World Heavyweight Title, which I mean on paper it's '98. Randy Savage is not in his prime anymore. Kind of. This is before he goes into the feud with DDP later on that year, which I had covered in my Throwback Thursday Great American matches and all that stuff. So go check that out. And plus, Sting around this time, he was getting kind of like the short end of the stick because he, in '97, he won the belt from Hogan due to shitty refereeing, but then it kind of got vacated, and then he had to win it back again at Super Brawl, which is so fucking stupid. Because around this time too, WCW and WWF, WWF was killing WCW in the ratings and stuff. And then you have ECW coming up from the weeds, kind of like bringing the extreme hardcore style to Philly and everywhere else. So it's like three major companies trying to fight for that right spot, sort of thing. Also, speaking about WWF, you have Unforgiven in Your House that exact same year, which is another classic two-match show sort of thing, with Taker and Kane and very first ever Inferno match. And they have Doolove defeating Stone Cold Steve Austin by DQ, which is crazy to think about because it's like you have your first kind of like major match as a world champion and you're losing by DQ. Kind of frustrates me a little bit, but you know what? We'll move on here. So then we have ECW with WrestlePalooza that in May. Then you have Andy and Seinfeld, which is like some of these names is like so freaking weird. It's crazy that ECW had three shows kind of like within the exact same year, which is crazy. Um, but then you have Slamboree with WCW. Um, then you have the Over the Edge in Your House pay per view later on in May. I think so. That Over the Edge pay per view. Sorry if I had spoke a little bit low and all that stuff. Um, but that Over the Edge pay per view was Stone Cold Steve Austin versus D Love again in a Falls Count Anywhere match with Mr. McMahon as a special guest referee. Dude Love could not get the job done again, which is crazy to say that two pay per view matches in a row. You have Dude Love losing and all that stuff. And now we finally get into June. Now, the key point in June, the most talked about pay per view of that month, is the King of the Ring that year. And that pay per view was the infamous Hell in a Cell bump that Mick Foley took off the cell, and is one of the craziest bumps I have ever seen. From a man, who's literally put his body on the line for our entertainment and all that stuff, but also the King of the Ring match itself with Ken Shamrock versus D Rock was a good match as well. It's crazy that the King of the Ring final, and then you had Taker versus Mankind in the Hell in a Cell, and then you had Kane versus Stone Cold Steve Austin for the WWF Championship, and the first blood match was back to back to back. Like that's got like to be like not the worst planning in the world, but it's got to be like the worst kind of like no breather sort of thing in between either. Because then you had you had Mick Foley get thrown off the cell not once but twice, uh, and all that stuff, and it's crazy to say that like Mick Foley is still with us to this day and he's in good health and everything, but it's like when you heard like JR going like by God Almighty, God by God Almighty, he broke it in half. Like he didn't know like that was gonna be planned or anything. So that's like crazy to like see like JR being like really concerned about his own friend in the business and that stuff. But it's a good moment. It's a crazy moment, and we will forever be grateful to like have that in our lives as wrestling history. So there wasn't really anything to write home about in July, um, but I do want to talk about the August 2nd, 1999 pay per view from ECW called Heatwave. And it's funny that we in the NXT world and all that stuff we have NXT Heatwave and all that stuff. So it's like it's kind of cool that they're incorporating some of these cool pay per view names from like old times past and all that stuff. And then, but the main event for this was Tommy Dreamer versus first Tommy Dreamer and Sandman and Spike Dudley versus the Dudleys, which was Bubba Ray Dudley, Devon Dudley, and Big Dick Dudley. In a Dudleyville street fight, is the craziest six-man tag I've ever seen in my life. And then around this point, like WCW's kind of like on that downcline a little bit. But then kind of like you have SummerSlam later on that month in at in New York City at Madison Square Garden in SummerSlam. You have Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Undertaker for the WWF Championship. It is a really good match. The other key match that I would recommend from that one is the ladder match between Rock and Triple H for the IC title, which is crazy to talk about. Like because like the next year it's like they're gonna be both like main event players, so it's like it's cool to see their roots and all that stuff. So now we move on to September. Now, September around this time, it's around like the kind of like not backlash, but it's kind of like kind of like a not a breaking point, but it's kind of like a what should you call it? Kind of like a downward decline for some people. Um, Not really for the WWF, but like for ECW and WCW. But the one key point I wanted to make was the Fall Brawl from '98 in WCW, because it was War Games, and you had Team WCW, which was DDP, Roddy Piper, and the Warrior. Keep that in mind. They faced the NWO Hollywood, which was Hogan, Bret Hart, and Stevie Ray. Keep that in mind. Versus NWO Wolfpack, which was Nash, Sting, and Luger. Now, when you think of War Games, you would think, oh, well, maybe 4v4, 5v5, whatever. This is a 9-man War Games. It was 3 teams of 3. That's the biggest clusterfuck of a War Games match I've ever seen. And there's so many moving parts, and there's a lot of stakes involved, which was like, it was DDP and Bret Hart starting out, and then you had Stevie Ray come in, and then you had Roddy Piper come in, and then you had I think you had Hogan come in, and then you had I think Nash. I think it was like so many like moving parts and all that crap, and it was like so overbooked because you had Warrior trying to go after Hogan to keep that storyline going, and then you had like Roddy going after Nash and Luger and all that stuff, and it's like such the biggest like clusterfuck of a War Games match I've ever seen. But the also other additive on top of it was like whoever scores the pinfall will get to face Goldberg at Halloween Havoc the next month. Now keep that in mind. You could have literally had, I don't know, maybe a 9-man tournament or something like that. Like have Hogan have a bye or something like that or some shit. And then you have DDP go face like Hogan. He's like getting beat down, worn out, and all stuff. But then you have Warrior come in and you like scare Hogan off, so he wins by count. So he loses by count out. DDP goes to face Goldberg at Halloween Havoc, which happens in real life. And then you have that match with Goldberg at Halloween Havoc. I don't know why they had to put 9 men into the War Games with that stakes. They could have just done a little like what I had just proposed. I don't know why they had to put, like I said, 9 people into a War Games just to get one person over to get to the next pay per view. It's such a clusterfuck of a match and all that stuff, and I wish like a lot of people shouldn't watch it. But because it's Hogan and it's Warrior and all that stuff, and like the old heads and all that stuff, so it's like it's just so freaking. It's fun to watch, but it's also a bore to watch. Also, another clusterfuck of a finish, I guess, at the Breakdown pay per view in September was like Kane and Undertaker pinned Steve Austin. So then the next night they had to kind of like vacate it, and then the next month Steve Austin was the referee, so he had to do the referee job to like make sure Kane and Undertaker like had to win and all that stuff, and like he got fired or some shit. I'm like, really? Like it's like the stupidest like booking decision of all time, sort of thing. It was like 2 shows that had like the potential to be good, but it's like it just didn't happen. And speaking of which, we're gonna go to that show right now. It's Judgment Day in October 18th, 1998. Judgment Day in your house. Kane and Taker ended in double pinfall for the vacant World Heavyweight Championship, which nobody won because Stone Cold Steve Austin said "fuck you," and he just cost Taker and Kane the title and all that stuff, and this man said, "You're fired," and which really didn't really happen because it's like Austin was the biggest draw of all time, so illusion broken. Sorry. But now we get to the match that I have been kind of dying to talk about. It's October 25th, 1998, Halloween Havoc, Paradise, Nevada, which has the main event of Goldberg versus DDP. Now, this pay per view, from top to bottom, it's not the best in the world, okay? It's not the best. But, when you think about it on paper, you have Chris Jericho defeating Raven by submission, which for the TV title, which is not bad. It's not a bad opener. Then you have you have Disco Inferno versus Juventud Guerrero, which is a good cruiserweight match. You have Saturn versus Lodi, which is not a match at all. It's basically like a 3-minute gif. But then you have Kidman versus Disco Inferno, who wrestled earlier in the night to face off for the Cruiserweight Championship. It's like Disco was made within 2 matches and all that stuff. He was a legit threat, kind of. But then you kind of gets bogged down a little bit because you have Rick Steiner and Buff Bagwell versus Scott Steiner and the Giant, because earlier in the year Rick got attacked by Scott, and Scott turned on his brother and joined with the NWO and all that stuff. But the additive after that was like, if Rick beat Scott and the Giant later in the night, he would get 5 minutes with Scott Steiner and all stuff, and that kind of like ended up being clusterfuck and all that shit too. Then it kind of gets worse from there. And then you have Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, which ended a count out and went 14 minutes too long because it's 2 old people. It's Big Sexy versus the Wolf, who is a drunk at the time. But then you think you would have the best, dream match. You would have Bret Hart versus Sting, which did not really get to do its thing because it kind of got bogged down by overbooking shit, which just sucks. Because you think, oh yeah, Bret Hart and Sting, the 2 biggest draws and all that stuff, and their time and all that stuff. It just ended up not being good. It ended up not being good at all. But then it got way dragged down by Hogan and Warrior, which went 14 minutes too long, which you could have literally gave those 10 extra minutes to Goldberg, maybe Goldberg and DDP, but Goldberg and DDP did the best they could, because they had 10 minutes to play with, 10 and a half minutes to play with, and it was, getting close to the time window of the main event and all that stuff, and it kind of cut off during the main event of Goldberg versus DDP, but then WCW kind of made up for it, aired the match the following night on Nitro and all that stuff, and it's like the Hall and Nash match and the Hogan and Warrior match should not have happened. If I could rebook it, maybe, but it's like I would want to do that on my own time, and try to make sure that it would be the right thing to do. But I think it's one of the not the worst pay per view of the year, but it's one of the top up there. So now we move on to November of '98, which it's kind of getting closer to Christmas season and all that stuff, and we'll get to that at some point. But the Survivor Series of that year was called the Deadly Games, and it was the 14-man tournament to crown a new WWF champion because Stone Cold Steve Austin couldn't get the job done, sort of thing. And this is where, The Rock becomes the corporate champion. And this is where the Mankind and Rock feud starts off, which helps them get into the next year. Because, Rock and Mankind, it's the all-time greatest rivalry of all time. As a singles person, I would love to go into that more a little bit, but I think I did an episode on that a few months ago, I can't remember, but this is a Star Wars born, as Star Wars made that night, and I think it kind of turned out for the better a little bit. All right, so we're at the end of the year in December of 1998. This is like, it's not sad, but it's notable for two things. It's notable for the Rock Bottom pay per view, which the main event was Stone Cold versus Undertaker in a very live match for the right to qualify or to compete in the '99 Royal Rumble match, and then the unthinkable happens. Kevin Nash defeats Goldberg, and snaps the hundred something match streak for the championship and all that stuff, which again should never had happened. Kevin Nash at the time, like he wasn't really mobile or anything. I mean, he was mobile, but like he wasn't moving the way he was anymore. And plus, Goldberg was the newest hot free agent on the block and all that stuff, and I think he should have kept it kind of going a little bit. Like maybe have like a young and upcoming superstar beat his streak, not a well established veteran beat him for the title and for the streak and all that stuff. Meanwhile, like mind you, like Scott Hall like cost Goldberg the title and the match too, which is kind of stupid. Now, with 1998 out of the way, let's go into 1999. So with 1999, we have some more well-known people. We have some more well-known debuts, births, and all that stuff, and retirements and deaths and all that stuff. But we'll get into that first. So one of the most notable ones, a really phenomenal like debut, was CM Punk. He debuted around this around he debuted around 1999. I'm sorry. Another one was like Carlito and all that stuff, which is crazy to think about that he's been around since like late '90s. Lance Cade, Jasmine St. Clair, which is like crazy to not really think about. Brian Danielson, he's been around since 1999. It's crazy that he's been around for 25 years. That's crazy to think about. Brian Kendrick, another legend in the making. Um, Hiroshi Tanahashi, Katsuyori Sabata, Dave Batista, John Cena. It's crazy that Dave Batista and John Cena debuted around this time in '99 of all things. And then like I mean, not looking at them now, like they're big superstars and all that stuff. For the retirements segment, Kenny Chaos, he was around for like 4 years, which is crazy. Um, Steve Mongo McMichael around for 4 years, which like he really didn't get a good fair shake at that point. Um, some some birthdays and all that stuff in '99. Jimmy fucking Lloyd, GCW. I'm trying to think. It's GCW something champion? I can't remember the the title that he had, but that's crazy to think about. He was born in '99. Tiffany Stratton on SmackDown right now. Hook Hajime, that little bastard, and then Sky Blue, all doing pretty good things in the wrestling world right now. Some of the deaths I kind of really don't remember some of them, but there was three that I do remember. One of them was Rick Rude. He died in 420, which is it's not funny, but it's kind of like a downer sort of thing. Because like when everybody thinks of 420, it's like, oh yeah, Blazing, think of like Rob Van Dam or something. But he was 40 when he passed. I think Rick Rude should have gotten a better shake in the wrestling industry and all that stuff, which is crazy. Owen Hart died around in 1999 at the Over the Edge pay per view. He was supposed to face Godfather. And Gorilla Monsoon in October. He was 62. Um, Sad to talk about that because it's like I said in the '98 review. Um, just cherish the loved ones that you have because you just never know when they're gone. So let's go on to the notable shows. So for the 1999 wrestling season, it was like I said, it was kind of like on the downcline for some people, for some companies, mainly WCW, because it didn't really hit its stride again. Not 998, 999, 2009, 01 or anything. Like its stride, like really peak year was like maybe 96, 97. Um, but like with that being said, like we're starting off with January of '99. You have the Royal Rumble, which like Mr. McMahon wins, which is crazy to think about. He beats Austin and all that stuff. Now here's a good jumping off point. February of '99, crossing the line '99. We have RVD challenging or facing Jerry Lynn for the ECW World Championship. Now, this is a feud that has put Jerry Lynn on the damn map. Now, when you think of Jerry Lynn, you think of like the Judgment Day, that whole promo that he had in '99 when he was the WWF World or Light Heavyweight Champion, and I think in 2000, I think that's when he went off to WWF. Um, but I want to get into that feud at some point, which I think it will be sometime soon. I just gotta find the time to do it. But yeah, it's one of the many matches that these two had over in '99 over the ECW Television Championship. And now we go to February 14th, Valentine's Day, St. Valentine's Day Massacre in your house. The main event was Stone Cold Steve Austin defeating Mr. McMahon by escaping the steel cage to determine the number one contender for the World Championship at WrestleMania 15, which was also the debut of Paul White in the WWF. Not really good not a really good hot start for Mr. Paul White, Mr. Big Show, but he'll keep going from face to heel, like the umpteenth time in the course of like all of his career. Not really much kind of like to write home about in March, really, but for ECW, the new ECW World Heavyweight Champion Taz defeats the FTW champion Sabu in an extreme death match to unify the ECW and FTW World titles, which I've seen not in person, but I've seen it on DVD and all that stuff, and it's a really kick-ass match. I will suggest that to anybody who wants to watch the ECW and all that stuff. It is a really good match. It kind of like gets not a little botchy, but it kind of like gets like ooh, kind of like because with some of the bumps and all that stuff. But it's a really good match. Go watch it. I'm not disappointed with that. So now, like I said, it's WrestleMania season. You have The Rock versus Steve Austin, the first match of their epic trilogy in '99, 2001, and 2003. In a no DQ match, and this is like really a one match show sort of thing, because like '99 was not really hitting it for that Mania that year, but everything else after that was really good, because like this is like peak Attitude Era, and like everything was off the charts and all that stuff. So yeah, it's not a bad show, but it's an okay show. Now, this next pay per view that I'm going to be talking about is one of the best, I think, WCW pay per views in '99. Is Spring Stampede 1999, April 11th, 1999. And from top to bottom, is a really, really kick-ass show. Because I have seen the Wrestling with Regret review of this. Shout out to Brian Zane, love your work. Because minus like maybe two matches off of it, like it's a really, really kick-ass show. Because you have you have Hutu Guerrero versus Blitzkrieg, which is really fun. Bam Bam versus Hardcore Hack, which is Sandman, in a fun little hardcore match. Sky Break versus Mikey Whipwreck, which is really good. Conan versus Disco Inferno, which is kind of eh. But then, kicks up a notch with Rey Mysterio versus Billy Kidman for the Cruiserweight title, which makes sense because it's really fucking good. Then you have Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko versus Raven Perry Center, which is amazing. Then you have Scott Steiner versus Booker T for the vacant WCW United States Championship, which is really, really good. It kind of gets down a little bit with Goldberg versus Nash, but it's picked back up again with the Four Corners match with DDP versus Ric Flair, who's the World Heavyweight Champion at the time, versus Hogan and Sting. And you have Randy Savage as a special guest referee. Oh man, the pay per view, like I said, it's from top to bottom. It's really, really, really good. I want to go watch it myself because I have seen the review from it and all that stuff. And everybody's different, but I've got to see it for myself because I think it is one of the best WCW pay per views of '99. I will put that against anything, maybe, but I gotta see it for myself. And we end with the Backlash in Your House match, or in Your House pay per view, I should say, on April 25th, 1999, with Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock and No Holds Barred for the WWF Championship with Shane McMahon as the guest referee. This match kicks all kinds of ass too. 99 in April was a pretty peak good month for WCW and WWF and all that stuff. Not really much ECW, but they're trying to keep above water. Let's just say that. So when I was looking at the matches and the pay-per-views for May and June, there wasn't really anything to write home about. It was just more kind of bad booking decisions sort of thing. But when we get into July, the pay-per-view I want to talk about is July 18th, 1999, Heat Wave from ECW. Main event was RVD and Jerry Lynn versus Impact Players, which is a really good tag team match, I think, in my opinion. But then a week later, then you have, Fully Loaded from from July 25th, 1999. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Undertaker in the First Blood match for the WWF Championship. And then you had those two pay-per-views back to back. It was I think it was a pretty good shows I should say. It was really, really pretty solid, I would say, for July for for ECW and WWF. So when we get into the month of August, there wasn't really much to see about WCW because this is about to be into the decline of WCW at this point. But the SummerSlam match I wanted to talk about too is Mankind versus Stone Cold versus Triple H with Jesse Ventura as special guest referee, which is crazy to think about. Many years later. The SummerSlam main event was okay. It wasn't bad, but it was kind of weird to have Mankind get the title, but then one night later, he loses to Triple H. Why couldn't Triple H just win it there, sort of thing? It's just crazy, but whatever. But then you have ECW, the last show at the Madhouse in Queens with Raven and Tommy Dreamer defeats the Dudley Boys for the ECW tag titles, which is a huge moment because the two rivals become tag partners could they coexist sort of storyline. So it's like it's kind of pretty cool, I guess. Well, we're going into September now, and with WCW's Fall Brawl, it's Sting versus Hulk Hogan again, and Sting beats Hogan. Lol. But the September 19th Anarchy Rules ECW show main event was RVD versus Boss Mahoney for the TV title. Now, this match actually really kicks some ass. Again, I've seen it on the Brian Zane review and all that stuff, which is a really good watch as well. I didn't think Boss Mahoney was like a really good singles guy until like I saw him mix it up with RVD and all that stuff. And it's like he had like the hardcore chair swinging freak versus like Mr. Monday Night RVD. It's like it's really like good clash of styles and all that stuff too. And plus this is a huge moment too, where it's like RVD's like almost like I think he's almost a year into his ECW World Championship title run and all that stuff, and this before he hurts his leg and all that shit. So it's like it's pretty cool to, like just to see that. But the other end of the spectrum here is Unforgiven that same month, which is the six-pack challenge for the vacant WWF title, with Stone Cold Steve Austin as the special outside enforcer. Now, key players involved are Triple H, Big Show, British Bulldog, Kane, Mankind, and The Rock. Now, one of those spots was supposed to go to The Undertaker, but he had a groin injury, and they had to put somebody in there, so they just shooed in Bulldog, which he kind of would have not really factored in anywhere, sort of thing. But I mean, it is what it is. And Triple H wins the WWF Championship for I think the second time at that point. So it's like Triple H wins. Now, before I say anything, get into October. Now, this is the infamous, like, one of the infamous shows that is very, very notorious for a bad wrestling show. It is called Heroes of Wrestling. And I know, a lot of people probably shit on this and all stuff, and I am too. And plus, it's like, it's a bunch of old dudes just looking for their keys or whatever. But it's like, it should not have happened. And I think a lot of people kind of agree with me on this, which I hope you do, because it's like, these are just like all these old folks, wrestlers from past years and all that stuff, and it's like they're just not wanting to like do business and all that stuff. But we have the WWF No Mercy pay-per-view with Triple H and Stone Cold, and they have Goldberg versus Sting in Halloween Havoc in October, which is like a good, I guess, sign of like hope, I guess. I'm looking at the card for the Halloween Havoc thing. It's like it's not really good per se, because like the last 4 matches, it's like Sting beats Hogan in 3 seconds, and then you have Goldberg beats Sid Vicious for the U.S. title. And they have Paige and Ric Flair, which is like, that sounds like a really good match. Then you have the main event, which is like Goldberg defeats Sting in less than 3 minutes. Oh boy, it's like, that just hurts. Like, it hurts my soul just to say that. Yeah, I think like WWF had like the probably better show, because it's like it's Triple H and Steve Austin, like the 2 biggest guys of their company. So we're almost at the end of the year, folks. Let's just keep this train moving. So we're going into November now. November 14th, 1999, Survivor Series. Now, Triple H and Rock in Austin. That was supposed to be the main event. But earlier in the night, Triple H, I guess, orchestrated an attack on Austin, and Austin was taken out of action, and he had to get neck surgery and all that stuff, which is smart. So then who they get replaced with? Big Show. Now, Big Show wasn't really a main event person yet. He was in the mid card. He was like upper mid card maybe. But we put the title on him, which is like a good step in the right direction, I guess. That really didn't last very long because then Triple H just got that shit back within like a month or so. It's sad to say that, but I mean it happens. But hopefully this WCW pay per view will exceed my expectations. Is WCW Mayhem 1999 it's dubbed the Night of Champions. Now, this pay per view is filled with tournament matches and all that stuff in and out of the thing. So it kicks off with Benoit versus Jeff Jarrett, which is a pretty good opening match. And then you have like Evan Courageous versus Disco Inferno, Norman Smiley versus Brian Knobbs for the inaugural Hardcore Championship match belt, which is crazy. Brett beats Sting, lol. And then it gets just worse and worse and worse from there. Because then you have Scott Hall defeats Booker T, David Flair versus Kimberly Page and all that stuff, which is yikes. Goldberg defeats Sid Vicious in 5 minutes in an I Quit match. Like, that's crazy. But hopefully the saving grace of that show was the Bret Hart versus Chris Benoit match, hopefully. It was the tournament final for the vacant world title, which I think sounds like a good match on paper, but hopefully it was executed very well. Alright guys, we finally made it. We finally made it to the end of 99. December 1999. Now, Armageddon, December 12th, 1999. Armageddon. It was not a bad show, because I had watched it before. The main event of that show was Triple H versus Mr. McMahon, which went on way too long, which like ended like what? It was like 30 something minutes. Let me see here. It was almost 30 minutes. Which I mean, I'm not against it, but it's like Mr. McMahon is not very trained well in the ring at this point. The other matches was all right. Because you had Acolytes winning a battle royal to determine the number one contenders at the for the WF Tag Team Championships at the Royal Rumble the next month. Kurt Angle defeats Steve Blackman, which is crazy. Val Venus defeats the British Bulldog and D'Lo for the European Championship. Kane versus Xbox in the Steel Cage, which is really fun. Chris Jericho defeats China for the IC title. That's 2 changes tonight. Rocket Sock defeats New Age Outlaws by DQ due to Al's no interference. Thanks, Al. Big Show defeats the Big Boss Man for the WWF Championship in 3 minutes. That's crazy. That Big Boss Man during this time was a world title contender, which is crazy to think about. And then, like I said, the main event was Triple H versus Mr. McMahon, no holds barred, 30 minutes and all that stuff. I mean, if they capped it like 20 minutes or something like that, I don't think anybody would have minded, or maybe 25. But it was like they had to like do a little bit, let Vince take a breather, do a little bit, let Vince take a breather, do a little bit, let Vince take a breather. So it's like it was like a lot of like stop go stop go stop go. But it didn't drag on or anything either. It was a lot of fun. But then you had like WCW Starrcade, which Bret Hart defeats Goldberg, which is crazy again. Which Goldberg should have never lost that streak and shit. But it's the end of '99, which is like thank God. So, with that being said, guys, that was the 1998 and 1999 year in review. Holy crap, that was a kind of tough pill to swallow. um, I guess I should have probably done a two-parter or something, because it's getting close to like 55 minutes, or almost 56 at this point. Um, it's kind of not bittersweet, but it's kind of ironic to go back to 98 and 99. Because, like I said at the top of the episode, I was born in 98, as a Christmas kind of baby, in 98. And it's like to see like all the wrestling that was happening around that time. It's like you got to kind of witness the downcline of WCW, but the rise of WWF and the rise of ECW. Um, but it doesn't get much better for some of those companies and all that stuff, because like in ECW they're kind of like getting close to the end of their run in ECW, because some people are leaving to go to greener pastures, like with WCW, like I know in like the year 2000, like Eddie, Benoit, Perry Saturn, and Dean Malenko, they all jumped ship to WWF in 2000. You have like all these people from ECW just leaving, like during the invasion and all that stuff. Like you have like Dudley Boys in the year 2000, like joining WWF in '99 and all that stuff. And it's just crazy, like to see how like much the landscape had changed at that point. Because ECW was kind of dying, and they had like to have like new talent come in, and you had like Jerry Lynn, you had RVD, you had Rhino, you had Impact players, you had Tommy Dreamer, Raven, Spike Dudley, Mike Awesome, if they hadn't left for WCW at that point. So it's like they had to have like all these like good names to like keep them afloat, but it was just dying. Um, Plus, like you think about three major companies at the time is like WWF, ECW, and ECW. But not a lot of people talk about ECW as like a third major company. You think of like WWF and WCW. But it was good to actually like reminisce a little bit about 98 and 99. Um, but with that being said, thank you guys for listening to this almost hour long like ramble about the years in review for 98 and 99. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know I did. Just to go down memory lane a little bit. But let me know what you guys think of the year 98 and 99. Leave it in the comments below. Now, for the song of the night tonight, I am going to go to Green Day here. It is a song off their American Idiot album, which had kind of hit its anniversary a few months ago, if not maybe kind of coming up soon. I can't remember. It is called Too Much Too Soon, and I think it is a perfect song for tonight's episode. So, with that being said, thank you guys for listening to this episode. We are almost on the road to 500 subscribers, if we're not at 500 at this point, which hopefully we are by this point. But we do have a link tree in the link in the description below. We have a Reddit page, we have a Twitter page, we have an Instagram page, we have a YouTube channel, which is on this YouTube channel right now. We have a TikTok page. I can't remember what else we have on the link tree. We have our own personal Instagrams between me and Marissa. I have my gaming YouTube channel as well. Hopefully I'm either at 1500 or just a little bit before it. I don't know if I am at this point, but because I'm doing this kind of in advance, sorry, right before I fall a little bit. But you know what? It's good to say what I want to say, but I mean, if I don't make it by to 1500, it's not the end of the world. There's still many more months to go. But with that being said, thank you. Sorry, thank you guys so much for listening and watching, and I will see you for another episode with me on Thursday. Peace.